To make before the day is over, telling the men and the women here and the world, because we in the media are also here in large number, what his current position is vis-a-vis Saddam Hussein. He's already laid out his policy for the Air Force and for the Navy, who've seen him this morning, saying again that American policy in the Gulf has numerous components to it: freedom, stopping aggression, the economic component. The President did say at one point this morning here that the guarantee of economic freedom was important to the Western world. It is not often he concentrates on the oil factor of the Persian Gulf. Here he will see 1,700 Marines, about 100 Seabees, those naval engineers who are so important to any military operation, and about 100 British men and officers who, along with the Marines, occupy the most forward positions in this eastern province of the kingdom. Only the French and the British and the Egyptians and the Syrians and the Moroccans and the Kuwaitis are between the Marines and the Kuwaiti border.
All right, Devil Dogs. President of the United States.
We're not altogether certain whether the President is going to speak first or lunch first, but there is the indication right now that he's going to speak
with
first.
Us today. We have four very special guests out here, the leaders, if you will, the top leadership of the United States Congress, the Speaker of the House, Tom Foley, the leader of the Senate, George Mitchell, next to him, Senator Mitchell, Congressman Bob Michael, the Republican leader, minority leader in the House, and Senator Bob Dole. And let me just say how pleased that Barbara and I are to be here. And I want to thank all of you for this welcome, this warm welcome. I want to thank General Myatt for greeting us, Mike Myatt and all of his people. I want to thank General Boomer. I want to thank Brigadier General Cordingley of the famed Desert Rats who are with us here. And I guess like all of you, Barbara and I always try to spend our Thanksgiving with our own family. And I know that's true of these leaders in the Congress. But after spending the morning visiting with the men and women of our Army, Air Force, Navy, and Coast Guard, and now with the 1st Marine Division here today, there could hardly be a prouder moment than sharing Thanksgiving with this family, this American family out here. And this is quite a crowd. I can't help but think of the warning one soldier gave comedian Steve Martin last month. True story. He said, "You'd better be funny. We've got bullets." Well, look at it this way. You guys better be nice to me. I got Norm Schwarzkopf with me. And I got Al Gray back there. So, I do first want to give a very special welcome to our staunch friends and allies, to General Cordingley and the famed Desert Rats. You, too, are a long way from home this day and your families. And I hope you will forgive me if I focus on the fact that this at home for Americans is our very special Thanksgiving Day. As we gather, it is dawn in America. Oops, lost track. 10 minutes of 8 on the East Coast and about 10 minutes of 6 out on the West. And the beginning of our day of Thanksgiving and remembrance. You know, as you drive by the farms and the cities in the early morning light, the windows all look the same. But inside each house and apartment, there are people with stories to tell, families bound together in hope and love. And believe me on this one, in all of those homes, in all of those families, you right here out in this desert are very much on the minds of the American people and all of those families. You know, Thanksgiving is the oldest, some might say the most American of holidays, dating back to our very origins as a people. And it's a day, I think we would all agree, separate and apart from others. It's a day of peace, It's a day of thanks, a day to remember what we stand for and what it means to be an American, and why our forebears sacrificed so much to cross an ocean and build a great land. And on this day, with all that America has to be thankful for, it is fair for Americans to say, why are we here? It's not all that complicated. There are three key reasons why we're here with our UN allies, making a stand in defense of peace and freedom. We're here to protect freedom, we're here to protect our future, and we're here to protect innocent life. Number one, protecting freedom means standing up to aggression. You know, the brutality inflicted on the people of Kuwait and on innocent citizens of every country must not be rewarded, because a bully unchecked today is a bully unleashed for tomorrow. And last August 2nd, this brutal dictator set out to wipe another country from the face of the earth. And Kuwait, a little tiny country, awoke to the flashing guns of cold-blooded troops, the fire and ice of Saddam Hussein's invasion. And now Kuwait is struggling for survival, an entire nation ransacked, looted, held hostage. And maybe you can strike a name from the maps, but you can't strike a country from the hearts of its people. The invasion of Kuwait was without provocation. The looting of Kuwait is without excuse, and the occupation of Kuwait will not stand. And number two, our mission is about protecting national security, which is to say, protecting our future, because energy security is national security for us and indeed for every country. Last year on a snowy Thanksgiving Eve up there at Camp David, I spoke to the American people about the newly fallen Berlin Wall. And the piece of the wall that sits on my desk is a reminder of our steadfast role in the worldwide explosion of freedom. But now the march of freedom must not be threatened by the man whose invasion of Kuwait is causing great economic hardship in the countries which can afford it the least. We just saw it in Czechoslovakia. Barbara and I are just back from Czechoslovakia, where the progress of their peaceful revolution has already been damaged by the shockwaves from Iraq's aggression. President Havel told me that Saddam's aggression is having a severe effect on his struggling economy, and every day that goes by increases the damage. But when he was asked if our action in the Gulf was taking too much money away from the problems of Eastern Europe, he answered plainly. He said, all the resources that are expended on resisting aggression anywhere in the world are finally turned to the good of all humankind. This from that playwright that was jailed not so many months ago by aggression itself. Listen to the words of this man who stands for freedom. Václav Havel is right. Iraq's aggression is not just a challenge to the security of Kuwait and the other Gulf neighbors, but to the better world we all hope to build in the wake of the Cold War. We're not talking simply about the price of gas, we are talking about the price of liberty. And number three, we're here because innocent lives are at stake. We've all heard of atrocities in Kuwait that would make the strongest among us weep. Turns your stomach when you listen to the tales of those that have escaped the brutality of Saddam the invader. Mass hangings, babies pulled from incubators and scattered like firewood across the floor, kids shot for failing to display the photos of Saddam Hussein, and he has unleashed a horror on the people of Kuwait. And our diplomats and our citizens held hostage must be free. And it's time to stop toying with the American hostages. And it's time to stop trying for Saddam to stop trying to starve out our little beleaguered embassy in Kuwait City in the same General Cordingley is true of the British embassy that is courageously holding on. The two of us side by side in Kuwait as we're shoulder to shoulder in the sands of Saudi Arabia. And it's time to put an end to this cruel hostage bazaar, bartering in human beings in the days of, like the days of the slave trade. Because if we let Iraq get away with this abuse now, Americans will pay a price in future hostage-taking for decades to come, and so will other nations. 3 simple reasons: protecting freedom, protecting our future, protecting innocent lives. And anyone is reason enough why Iraq's unprincipled, unprovoked aggression must not go unchallenged. And together, they make a compelling case for you to be away from your families on this special Thanksgiving Day. They make a compelling case for your mission. No president is quick to order American troops abroad. But there are times when any nation that values its own freedom must confront aggression. Czechoslovakia, they know firsthand about the folly of appeasement. They know about the tyranny of dictatorial conquest. And in the world war that followed, the world paid dearly for appeasing an aggressor who should and could have been stopped. We're not going to make that mistake again. We will not appease this aggressor. As in World War II, the threat to American lives from a seemingly distant enemy must be measured against the nature of the aggression itself. A dictator who has gassed his own people, innocent women and children, unleashing chemical weapons of mass destruction, weapons that were considered unthinkable in the civilized world for over 70 years. And let me say this, those who would measure Saddam Hussein's, those who would measure the timetable for Saddam's atomic program in years may be seriously underestimating the reality of that situation and the gravity of the threat. Every day that passes brings Saddam one step closer to realizing his goal of a nuclear weapons arsenal. And that's why more and more your mission is marked by a real sense of urgency. You know, no one knows precisely when this dictator may acquire atomic weapons or exactly who they may be aimed at down the road, but we do know this for sure. He has never possessed a weapon that he didn't use. What we're confronting is a classic bully who thinks he can get away with kicking sand in the face of the world. So far, I've tried to act with restraint and patience. I think that's the American way. But Saddam is making the mistake of his life. If he confuses an abundance of restraint confuses that with a lack of resolve. Over the past 4 months, you have launched what history will judge as one of the most important deployments of Allied military power since 1945. And I've come here today to personally thank you. The world is watching. Our objectives in the Gulf have never varied. We want to free and restore Kuwait's government, protect American citizens abroad, safeguard the security and stability of the region. A united world has spelled out these objectives in 10 United Nations Security Council resolutions. To force Iraq to comply, we and our allies have forged a strong diplomatic, economic, and military strategy. But the Iraqi dictator still hasn't gotten the message. And maybe he's confused by his own propaganda, this ridiculous radio broadcast that I understand the Marines have labeled Baghdad Betty. Well, she plays all the oldies, so one guy suggested that we send Iraq a tape of MC Hammer and a note that says, this is how we entertain ourselves, just imagine how we fight. We have been patient. We've gone to the United Nations. time and time again. I'm prepared to go another time. We still hope for a peaceful settlement, but the world is a dangerous place, and we must make all of these options credible. Those in uniform, seems to me, will always bear the heaviest burden. We understand something of what you endure, the waiting, the uncertainty, the demands of family and military life. And we want every single troop home. We want every Brit to be able to go home as soon as possible. We want every single American home. And this I promise. No American will be kept in the Gulf a single day longer than necessary, but we won't pull punches. We are not here on some exercise. This is a real world situation. And we're not walking away until our mission is done, until the invader is out of Kuwait. And that may well be where you come in. As we meet, it is dawn in America. It is Thanksgiving Day. The church bells ring, an hour of prayer, a day of rest, a nation at peace, and especially today, Americans understand the contribution that you all are making to world peace and to our country. Year after year on this special day, no doubt each of you has given thanks for your country. This year, your country gives thanks for you. Thanksgiving is a day of prayer, a day when we thank God for our many, many blessings. And I've done that today. This has been an unforgettable visit. An unforgettable visit. And I leave, as I know our congressmen do, and I know Barbara does, with pride in our hearts, a prayer on our lips. God bless you all. God bless our faithful allies of the United Kingdom. God bless the Marines. And may God bless the greatest, freest country on the face of the earth, the United States of America. Thank you and bless you all. Thank you. Good luck to all these guys. Oh, yeah. Now, wait a minute. We got a challenge to offer here. I brought you a present because I thought maybe you could find a place to use these things. No, that's not a fly swat. Now, here's the point. Or maybe. All right. I want to get the general to organize a little tournament around here. And I'll bet you, and I invite the winners, this team, you need two on a team here. Invite the winners to the White House as soon as you get through your workout here. And my son and I will be prepared at any time of your convenience to take on the winners on the White House Horseshoe Pit. It's a challenge. It's a firm invitation. I want the two best men you got, possibly women. We had a woman champion there in the White House this year. Come and get it. I think we can whip you. Good luck. Good luck to you, Marines.
Well, that is certainly the most spontaneous moment we've seen from the President this morning at the 1st Marine Division headquarters somewhere in eastern Saudi Arabia, offering up this challenge to the Marines to put together their best team of horseshoe pitchers. Introducing Mrs. Bush, Millie's mother, as he refers to her. There are a lot of horseshoes played out here in the desert. In their spare time, American servicemen and women pitch horseshoes, play volleyball, play football, the usual pursuits of American men and women overseas. And now the President, in the next few minutes, is going to have his second Thanksgiving dinner of the day, and we'll simply stay with him and Mrs. Bush. This particular event with the Marines has been many weeks in the making by the White House advance teams. And as we watch him proceed, let's just listen to some of the other voices. not least of whom, of course, is Charlie Gibson, who was elsewhere in the eastern province of Saudi Arabia this morning at the headquarters of the 82nd Airborne at something called Champion, Maine. Charlie, you've been with members of the 82nd who've heard the president speak. My own sense is they're very glad to hear what the mission is as defined by the president, because a lot of people out here are quite uncertain.
Well, Peter, it was an unusual scene. We are at the headquarters of the 82nd Airborne, and I'm standing here with about 250 members of that paratroop division. We listened to the president's remarks, and the question on everybody's mind, I'm not sure how clearly the mission was defined, because the question on everybody's mind is, how long is this going to take? When do I get to go home? And obviously there was no definitive answer in that. Also interesting words, because the president said, you know, we may have to clear out Kuwait, and that's where you come in. This is the only paratroop division in the United States Army. These are the guys who would have to jump behind the lines. These are the guys who would have to jump behind the lines if that time came. That's a very sobering thought. Let me just get some reaction quickly to the president's remarks. Some of the guys here. What's your name?
Sergeant First Class Terry Hines.
What do you think?
I think it's great. There's only two things he didn't say. And that shoots around the way, and we got the command to go.
That's what you guys really are waiting for? You expect that this will happen at some point?
We expected it when we came on the ground. Got here with the 5th bird in, and we expected it when we got here. Hasn't happened yet, but this is the best division to be in. It's the only division to be in.
Peter, as he mentioned a moment ago, these were the first guys here. They've been here now, as I was mentioning earlier on Good Morning America. They all know the numbers of days that they've been here. You talk to them, it's 103, 105, 106. They know the number of days they've been here. What's your name?
PFC Romero.
When you listen to the president, your reaction?
My reaction is, let's go in and kick butt.
Peter?
Thanks very much, Charlie. The president will see about 7,000 or 8,000 American servicemen and women today, and each one of them, as you allude, will be hungry for news from home. There is still so little news more than 100 days after Americans were first deployed here. It's still rather hard for those out in the desert to get a newspaper. It's even difficult for them to hear Armed Forces radio, though it's a little easier for them in the rear positions than it is in the front. But there is, among almost everyone one encounters here, a real genuine hunger for news from home, and on this particular day, an absolute desire to have a connection to home. There will be an opportunity for anybody who can get within shouting distance of a telephone over this week to be able to call home and have at least 3 minutes with their loved one. Out there at 1st Marine Headquarters with the president, as he has been all day, is our White House correspondent, Britt Hume. Britt, I'd like a sense from you, if you would, on how you think the president feels about being here.
Peter, it's been a very emotional day for him. It didn't occur here at this particular session with the Marines, but in his earlier talks, when he first arrived up here in Durand, and then when he spoke to the Armed Forces members of the Army and out on the ship, you could hear the catch in his voice. He was choked up as he thanked them for being here and for their mission. And you had the strong sense that this was a president who was looking in the eye young men whom he recognized he might soon send into combat. And indeed, he came right and almost said that here today.
The president, as Britt says, has been a number of places. He was on the USS Nassau out in the international waters of the Persian Gulf, a visit with the Navy to a helicopter assault carrier, and Thanksgiving Day services. He will not have much opportunity to see any Saudis today, but his mission is not that today. Yesterday, when he landed in Jeddah, over on the Red Sea coast of Saudi Arabia, he saw King Fahd, and he also saw the Emir of Kuwait, the man without a country. Britt, one of the other things that strikes me about listening to this most recent speech particularly is the president has been more militant, more aggressive in his language about Saddam Hussein today than I've heard him before.
Well, Peter, that's been consistent to some extent with what he's been saying over the last week or so, but you're quite right. The language has been more blunt and more direct today. And I think that he has crossed some divide in his own mind about what he's going to do here. He is going to seek a resolution from the United Nations to try to get the use of force authorized in the strong hope that that by itself might do the trick and convince Saddam Hussein to turn tail and leave Kuwait. But failing that, I think the president has made a decision that he is prepared to send United States forces into battle And as we know, many more U.S. forces are on the way here. I had an opportunity to speak to General Schwarzkopf, the U.S. commander here today briefly, and I asked him about the buildup on the other side by Saddam Hussein, and he said that he wasn't really particularly concerned about it because it would either require him to weaken his forces elsewhere where he would need them, or he would have to be sending in rather raw troops.
Okay, Britt, thanks very much. I know you're about to lose your telephone up there at 1st Marine Headquarters on a microphone from Washington. No one can better appraise what the new balance of power may be between U.S. forces and the Iraqis in Kuwait than the former chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, Admiral William Crowe. Admiral Crowe, you know this part of the world particularly, having served out here yourself. What do you think of all the latest suggestions by Saddam Hussein that he's going to put more troops into Kuwait? And how do U.S. forces deployed as they are at the moment look to you out here at the moment? Ready?
Well, they certainly look good on camera, Peter.
That's true, sir.
I'm very impressed with what I've seen this morning, and I think we're seeing the president in his own. You're seeing vintage George Bush today and the bond that he has struck up with the troops. They're both going to come away from this refreshed and probably in a rededicated fashion. I find it very emotional here, and I know it's even more so for the president himself. He laid out the 3 objectives that he says that are our objectives. I'm not so sure he was successful in pointing out how important those are to the United States, but certainly he made his case, and I know it meant a lot to those troops to hear that directly from the president. I think his remarks were distinguished by the fact that he never mentioned the complexity of the Middle East and the future of the Middle East. And also I got the sense that he is personalizing this combat between he and Saddam Hussein more and more every day.
Admiral Crowe, if you could answer also the question about how the new Iraqi configuration in Kuwait looks to you. You talk to the troops out here in the field, and they all want to know what it's like, obviously, and the surprising thing is you take a look at the young men and the young women out here today, and they are so astonishing young. The overwhelming majority out here of them have never seen combat, and they hear all these stories about, you know, the increased fortification by the Iraqis in Kuwait. Tell us from your point of view how formidable the Iraqis look on the front lines of Kuwait and in depth.
They enjoy some advantages, of course, and that is that they have been in combat before. They're operating in their own medium. They know how to keep their equipment working in the desert, and they're also fighting on their own soil. I don't think that they are the best soldiers in the world. I think our people are a great deal better trained. I have great confidence and faith in our people, and I think we would prevail. You mentioned, of course, that the bulk of them have not been in combat. This is a disadvantage. We must live with that. They will learn very, very fast, and they are already learning in their desert training. But that will be a disadvantage for a while when they fight. Because we fight infrequently, always have that problem. It just goes with our situation. I am not disturbed about the recent move of further troops to Kuwait. I would agree with the president on that. He's taking them from somewhere else, etc.
Okay, Admiral Crowe, thank you very much for joining us this morning on the subject of Iraq. ABC's Dennis Trout is in Baghdad this morning. And Dennis, I know that you were down at the U.S. Embassy in Baghdad this morning, where they are attempting at least to celebrate Thanksgiving.
I think attempt is a good word, Peter. The mood was very somber. The acting ambassador, Joe Wilson, was asked what he had to be thankful for. And he said, well, I'm thankful for my family. I have a nice family, and I'm thankful that we're not yet at war. He was going later in the day to talk again to the Iraqi foreign minister to ask for the release of American hostages here, to demand their release. But obviously there's not much hope for diplomacy from this quarter. Likewise, the mood of the Iraqis is quite somber. They are sending more troops to the front, as you pointed out. They have endured 8 years of warfare with Iran, many, many casualties, 500,000. And they say they can survive, but they don't want more warfare. And they keep asking, why is America here? And I still get the sense that as much as he is disliked in many ways, they will stand behind their leadership for now.
Also with us this morning is ABC's consultant, Middle East consultant, Judith Kipper, who was with us in Baghdad the other day. Judith, you have...